All right, I know we're about 2 weeks in, but I didn't want to bring any misinformation to the table. So by the end of this video, you guys are going to know everything you need to know about shells. How they affect your characters, what you can do with them, how do you improve them, and a progression system when going through them, like which shells to farm early and which shells to farm late. So shells are like little familiars that fight alongside your characters. You'll see them right behind your character or to the side of your character when you're in combat. They provide significant stat bonuses and passives and plenty of different things that can help you defeat your enemies in combat. They also come in different rarities. So do note that the stars determine, how much or how high their level can be. So if a shell is 3-star, it can go only up to level 30, 4-star 40. And then the rarity determines the amount of stats they gain and how more impactful their passives are. So this red one is a mythic shell. It would have a better passive more than likely than a yellow one or a purple one or a blue one, which are the low rarities. They follow the same color scheming as your modules. So let's go directly into one of these right now. All right, so the shell menu might be a little bit daunting for those of you new to the game. And we're going to go step by step to explain everything. So the basic attributes, these are the attributes your shell gives. And when they're attached onto a character, these get directly added to that character. You can think of these shells like a weapon. These shells also have a passive effect. They get one passive per ascendancy. And this skill here is the skill of the shell. Now, these values here, this first value tells you how long it takes until the initial skill of the shell activates. And this is the cooldown, so how many times you have to wait until that skill activates. So let's take a look at this guy over here. You see how it has 1 here and a 3 here? So what this means, and it's attached to my Freya, so we're going to use her as an example. When Freya goes first, let's use the first character in the queue. She goes, this 1 will tick down to 0, and it will not activate this skill. And then when it cycles back to Freya, then this skill will now be active, and you'll activate this defensive skill, and then you'll have to wait 3 more turns before you can activate it again. So you can use this to plan out certain things. Like, for example, this gives a shield. So, maybe the case of this is, you take a little bit of damage, and now you shield up, and that way when the enemies also ramp up, you can block some attacks. So that's probably one way to use this particular type of shell. So that's what that does there. All right, so how do we upgrade these shells? Well, they use this resource called training data, which is similar to the investigation for your animuses. But the advantage here is that you don't have to, whatever shell you're trying to farm, the training data will always drop in that area. Every run, you get some. So that is a 2-for-1 deal. You can upgrade your dudes while farming for them as well. So once you hit a multiple of 10, you can then ascend them. And when you ascend them, they now get this passive here, one of these passives. So and it requires you, from 0 to 1, 0 to 10 is no ascension. But if we're going from 10 to 20, you got to feed it a copy of the unit. So you see here, and it can only take a copy of its own self. You can't feed it other types of characters or shells. So, for example, this one's level 30. If we want to take it to 40, we got to feed it 3 copies. For to get to 30, from 20 to 30, you feed it 2 copies and so forth. And then once you do this, it gets a base stat increase to some degree. And it then gets a passive. So now it has 3 different passives because it is ascended 3. And then once it levels up again, you can ascend it. This one, the max level it's going to hit is 40 because it's 4-star. You can ascend it again, and it's going to get a nice stat boost. And on the final ascension, this gets awakened. It gets to a stronger version. So if you click this, you can say this is after awaken. It increases the turn meter by 35 when the initial was 30. So you're going to get a benefit from max awakening them, even though you get all your passives a little bit earlier. The reconfigure feature. So this is a really neat feature. It allows you to re-roll the passives on them. If you get unlucky and your passives suck, by using these reconfig chips, which you only get from, breaking down shells. We're going to show you that in a second too. But basically, you can select one of these lanes and reconfigure and be like, oh, okay, 10% HP, we'll take it. And it overrides it. And if you want to come here, you can see which slots give which passive. So you can, keep rolling until you get one you like. If you're a DPS, you might want this crit damage or crit rate. If you're a healer, you might want this healing done. Same thing here, you got some attack percentage stuff here, and you got some really nice passives here as well. And that is up to whatever character or how you want to build your characters. And that's basically all the reconfigure is good for. It's like, when you have enough resources, you can just keep rerolling so you get the perfect stats for your animuses and your shells together. Alright, so the imprint feature is a feature that helps you when you're unlucky or you can't farm like your shells right now, but later on you want to fix up certain passives for your shells. So you see how this guy is Swift Rush and Strive. Well, let's say you don't want this. Let's say you want this guy for a healer and you want, more HP, you want more healing percentages and stuff like that. You can come down here and take one of these guys right here. Like, here's Strive. Here's Wellspring. You take the lower level shell, you hit imprint, and then you put the higher level shell here. So what this is going to do is the best way to put it is it basically transforms your old shell into the new one, and the only thing that changes is the new one's passives. So you see this guy here, like we said, is Swift Rush Strive. If we imprint it onto level 1, this level 1 is going to get the level, the stats, the ascendancy of the old one, but now it's Wellspring and Strive. It's no longer Swift Rush. And you can see that, look, the passive stayed the same. You can still upgrade it to level 40. And it has all 3 passives. So that's a really neat way of like, okay, I got this shell now. Later on, while farming, you're like, oh, I wanted to change my setup. I want, Swift Rush. Well, you go find one of the Swift Rush and you imprint it on. And that's how that works. All right, so let's talk about the differences in stats between shells. So you see this guy he's a striker and he has a lot more attack. So striker means that they're probably going to have more attack than another type of shell. You see how this one is supporter. It has a higher defense, higher HP than the striker. But the striker has higher attack. We go over here to the survivor. It has higher HP and attack than the supporter. Now, this doesn't even determine the stat line of this. Because look, this is a lower rarity shell. It's a supporter, but it has higher attack than a higher rarity shell. So it really does depend on the shell itself, in my opinion, from all my testing. And the reason why these stats are generally lower, like the speed stat is lower here, is because this is a lower rarity than this shell. So 30 is the highest speed I've seen on yellow shells, and 35 is the highest speed I've seen on red shells. So you do need to be careful on matching your shells with the right animuses so that they have the right stat line you're looking for. So, someone who scales off a defense may want this guy more. Someone who scales off HP may want this one more. Someone who wants HP and attack may want this one more as well. So that covers the difference on these shells. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the progression I would take when going from, a new account and trying to power it up. You first fight, you're gonna fight Jacques here. I don't think you really don't want any shells from this guy. Like even this one over here, I don't think he's worth leveling up. And I will say this, I would generally only level up purple shells. And even then that's a little bit stretching it, but I know you guys may not have perfect modules and stuff, so these shells based attacks are going to be very beneficial to your damage dealers. Like the ones that have higher attack than other stats, and the ones that have higher HP can be good for your supports. So that's why I would only start leveling up the purple ones, since they can at least hit level 30. So you don't really want one of these guys. You just complete this stage to move on to the next one. In here, you have a really interesting shell here. This is the first time you get a shell that can be useful for your supporters. You see, after the owner takes action, every 4 turns, the turn meter goes 30%. But I wouldn't go too crazy here. Because these are generally for like your support classes, like your crowd control, your healer and stuff like that. This guy also just saying he increases healing, but he's still not worth it in my opinion. And then you're going to finally get here to this girl. Now here is where it's, in my opinion, where it's actually worth dumping some stamina in to farm this area. This guy right here is going to be really good for your DPS characters, right? He increases your crit damage and he just, launches 2 attacks at them. This guy is going to be really good for your like debuffers, like things with defense down, attack down, speed down. It doesn't work on dots, and it doesn't work on control debuffs like freeze, sleep, and stun. But it does work against attack down, speed down, and stuff like that. So, if a defense down only lasts 2 turns, with this guy, he can extend it to 3 turns. So that's going to be really cool there. This guy is not really, he's okay if you really want some extra damage, but like, to be honest, I like this guy more. So I would leave him alone and I would farm this guy here. Then after there, you fight this guy. I would not really worry about any of this. If you really want, you can like use one of these shells here that can heal. This cooldown one could be useful for certain characters that have long cooldown turns. 5 turns or so, this can help with that. But it's not, that much worth investing in my opinion. And then we get to Fabian. This is where the game picks up. This is where your power is going to spike. Because you get 2 of the best shells there. And this is where you get yellow shells. This is where you will start to see a huge damage increase when you're trying to progress through those hell floors of your, Doki Doki or Terramaton or whoever you want to do. This guy is definitely worth farming. Twilight Knight, he's really good for your DPSs. And he's really good for anyone that deals with DPSs. For example, I put this on my Lily for her skill 1. What it does is when she uses her skill 1, the DPS that has her buff can attack right after. So this guy will put a defense down. And Lily goes, hits the opponent. And then now your DPS goes and hits the opponent. And then the defense down is gone. So it's really good to put on your DPSs and anyone involving your damage dealers. This guy is really good when putting on your supports. Not only does it move the Animus's turn meter by 12%, it gives a speed up buff. So that can help your Animuses become a lot faster. This one's more of a defensive one. This is more of a niche one. You don't really use it that often, but if you do have a defense scaling one, you can put this on them and it can help quite a bit for survivability. But me progressing, all I needed was Twilight Knight and Black Flag, and that carried me all the way through Hell Doki Doki. Now we're going to go down to Whitney. I think you just beat Whitney to beat Whitney. I don't think you farm Whitney. I don't think any of this is worth it, in my opinion. If you want to mess around with it, you can, but I would not waste my time here at Whitney. Nico Nana is now where you get mythic level shells. This is where you're going to see a huge stat increase, and this is, in my opinion, definitely farming. Definitely farming the hell version of this, because you get these 4 guys here. This guy is going to be very strong for your DPS. He's going to carry you through the end of the game until you can get through the very, very end level 50 type stuff. This guy is going to be really good to have on one of your supporters to shield them so that at least 2 of your units can take some hits. This one's going to be really good for moving your characters up. When the enemies are that way, if any enemy outspeeds you, you have a chance to cut in between them with whoever is wearing this. And this guy, he's the worst one here, but he's still useful if you're trying to fight certain content. If you're fighting content with a lot of debuffs, you can put this on your healer or your turn meter pusher, and that way they don't get locked down, because every 4 turns you'll dispel 2 buffs and increase their effect resistance, which means that the chance of them landing buffs are a lot smaller, and that's really good. So Nico Nana Hell, that's where it's all at. You can farm Nightmare too if you just want these 2. Let's say you can't do Hell mode. Yeah, it definitely is worth farming Nightmare in my opinion. You definitely can get the job done with just these 2 alone. And this also gives you these as well. So you can even upgrade more characters that way, because these are the yellow shells that I said were worth it. Now we go to Sharon. This is where I am at currently. Is the only one I could farm consistently. I can't farm this one consistently yet. Uh, but Sharon has these shells, and me personally, I have not really experimented much with these shells, but they seem cool. I wouldn't bother, because when you get to this one, Shadow Flame, my god, these shells are ridiculous. Like, this guy legit just starts taking 10% every three turns of the opponent's max HP. That percentage base means that as content goes forward, as HP pools get bigger, his damage is going to scale. That's really good. So, you know, this guy is definitely worth farming. I think he's one of the most broken shells, at least that I've owned. And some of these are really cool. Now, once you get to this territory, right? Once you're able to farm this, I think this is where you're truly in endgame. You're like, if you can put this hell mode on auto and you can sit there and farm this, and like 90% of your runs are, like, you know, done, like you do 10 runs and you finish 8 to 9 of them successfully, you know, it's worth sitting here for a bit to try to get this shell right here. This is a gear check. This particular one is a gear check, and here's where you're gonna hit the biggest wall when farming these shells. And if you guys need, you know, trouble with these bosses, I'll probably make a guide on each one of these like bosses, like from Fabian onward, because they do take some mechanics to work with until you outgear them. But yeah, that takes care of it. So to sum it up, right? Don't farm this guy. You can come here. Don't really farm this guy. You come here. You can farm, get these two, and only these two here. Put them on your DPS and supporter, and you're good to go. Keep progressing through. You get to Fabian. Grab these two. You can sit here and farm. Tech all your characters out with yellow shells, and you're good to go, with these two being the leading two of them. Then you move your way up to Nikonana, get your first mythic, and you're good to go there. And this will carry you to the end of the game. And then once your modules are all red, like once they're all leveled up and they're, you know, have high stats, then you should be able to auto this one fine and start getting these OP shells. I can't really speak much for this one. I really don't have these shells here, but I mean, some of these just sound broken, right? Like, look at this free cooldown. So once I get here, you know, and we're probably going to have to make a guide on this guy. He's like the last guy. He's got to be hard, right? So, you know, we'll make a guide once we come down to this guy. But that takes care of your progression. I hope this video helps on the purpose of shells and how much they can impact while going through the route of farming and progression throughout the game. This is what I've used to get to the end game, and I think it, you know, I think it works fairly solid this way. So I'm the Gacha Game Cultivator. Do remember to subscribe and comment, and catch you guys on the next video.